Welcome to second lesson of section 4, where we will explore how European interests began to shape the course of Palestinian history in the 19th century. We will also examine the impact of missionary activities in the region and the rise of nationalism during the late Ottoman period. The 19th century marked a significant shift in the power dynamics of the Middle East, with European nations becoming increasingly involved in Ottoman affairs, including Palestine. Let's explore the topic European interests in Palestine. We will start with geopolitical interests. By the early 19th century, European powers, particularly Britain, France, Russia, and later Germany, began to take a keen interest in the Ottoman Empire, often referred to as the sick man of Europe. Palestine, located at the crossroads of Europe, Asia, and Africa, became strategically important. Britain sought to secure its trade routes to India, its crown jewel colony, and maintain influence over Egypt and the Suez Canal, while France had interests in protecting Catholic institutions in the Holy Land. These European powers engaged in a kind of great game diplomacy, where each sought to increase its influence in the Middle East, including Palestine, without causing the outright collapse of the Ottoman Empire. Let's see the role of consulates. By the mid-19th century, several European nations had established consulates in Palestine, particularly in Jerusalem. These consulates often acted as protectors of their respective religious communities. The presence of European consulates and diplomats in Palestine increased the political and economic influence of foreign powers in the region. Local elites often sought the protection and patronage of these consulates to gain advantages in land disputes or business ventures. Next, we will explore the topic European missionary activities. We will start with missionary efforts. Alongside their political and economic interests, European powers, particularly Britain, France, and Russia, sponsored Christian missionary activities in Palestine. These missionaries aimed to spread their faith, provide education, and influence the local population. Protestant and Catholic missionaries established schools, hospitals, and orphanages. They also promoted Western education and values, which had a lasting impact on Palestinian society, especially in the cities. What was the impact on education? Missionary schools introduced European curricula, which focused on science, languages, and modern subjects. This had the dual effect of modernizing education in Palestine, while also creating a small but influential educated class who were exposed to European ideas and culture. The American colony in Jerusalem, for instance, was founded by American Protestants and became an influential community that contributed to the local economy and education. What was religious and cultural influence? The religious competition between Catholic, Orthodox, and Protestant missionaries contributed to a sense of division among the Christian communities in Palestine. These divisions were often exploited by European powers to gain political leverage. The focus on missionary activities also brought about a greater awareness of Palestine in European public consciousness, particularly as the region was seen as the Holy Land, drawing pilgrims and further deepening European involvement in its affairs. We will now address the rise of nationalism in the late Ottoman period. Let's start with the spread of nationalism. In the latter half of the 19th century, the Ottoman Empire faced growing challenges from nationalist movements within its territories, particularly in the Balkans, and these movements began to spread to the Arab provinces of the empire, including Palestine. The Young Ottomans, an intellectual group within the empire, advocated for constitutionalism and Ottomanism, a sense of unity that transcended ethnic and religious divisions within the empire. Their ideas laid the groundwork for the Young Turk Revolution of 1908, which sought to modernize and reform the Ottoman state. In Palestine, as elsewhere in the Arab world, Arab nationalism began to emerge. Many intellectuals, frustrated by the declining power of the Ottoman Empire and its inability to resist European encroachments, called for greater autonomy or even independence for the Arab provinces. So, what was the impact of European nationalism? European ideas of nationalism and self-determination also influenced Palestinian intellectuals. Exposure to Western education and ideas through missionary schools and consulates contributed to the growth of a Palestinian identity within the larger Arab nationalist movement. Arab intellectuals in cities like Jerusalem, Beirut, and Cairo began to organize themselves politically, often through newspapers and clubs, to discuss the future of their regions in a rapidly changing world. Let's see the role of the Ottoman Tanzimat reforms. The Tanzimat reforms, introduced by the Ottoman Empire in the mid-19th century, were aimed at modernizing the empire and curbing European interference by centralizing authority, promoting legal equality for all citizens, and reforming the tax and land systems. However, these reforms often alienated both the local Palestinian population and the ruling elites, as they were seen as a way to impose greater Ottoman control over the region and reduce local autonomy. In the process, a growing sense of Arab nationalism began to develop, with many Arabs feeling that the reforms did not sufficiently address their political and economic grievances, particularly in the face of increasing European influence. The decline of Ottoman authority and the path to modernization. We will now address European encroachment. Despite efforts to modernize through the Tanzimat reforms, the Ottoman Empire continued to lose territory and influence throughout the 19th century. By the late 19th century, the British and French had gained significant control over large parts of the Middle East, and Palestine remained vulnerable to foreign intervention. The construction of infrastructure projects, such as railways and telegraphs, often funded and built by Europeans, further entangled Palestine in European interests. The Suez Canal, completed in 1869, only heightened European competition over control of the region. What was the local responses to European influence? Some Palestinians, particularly the urban elite, welcomed aspects of European modernization, including technological advances and Western education. However, there was also significant resistance to European missionary activities and the erosion of traditional ways of life. The land reforms introduced by the Ottomans and influenced by European models often resulted in the loss of land for Palestinian peasants, contributing to growing dissatisfaction with Ottoman rule and increasing the desire for self-governance. It's time to conclude our lesson now. The 19th century was a transformative period for Palestine as European interests and missionary activities deepened the region's ties to the West and significantly influenced its social and political landscape. The rise of nationalism, both in the Ottoman Empire and in Europe, planted the seeds for future political movements in Palestine as local leaders began to question Ottoman authority and sought greater autonomy or independence. These dynamics set the stage for the dramatic events of the 20th century, when Palestine would become a focal point of conflict and international diplomacy.